It is 3 o'clock, but I was a little late getting this set up. So we'll wait a couple more minutes to see if some more come on. In the meantime, if you could type in the chat box where you are located, that would be very useful. Gonna wait a couple more minutes, see if anybody else joins. If you could type in the chat box where you're located, that would be very helpful. One more minute and then we'll get started. Maybe one more person will show up. We'll see. Oh, and we did get one more person. As soon as it hits 3:02 on my computer, we'll get started. Okay, I have 3:02. We are going to get started. My name's Dr. Jacquie Jacob, and I am the poultry extension specialist at the University of Kentucky. As part of my job description, I do the community of practice, they call it, for small and backyard flocks on e-extension. E-extension being the electronic version of the National Cooperative Extension Service. We do monthly webinars. Aside from having all sorts of articles and blog and things like that, we do have monthly webinars as well. For last month's webinar and this month's webinar, I'm the speaker. Last week was alternative grains for poultry production. And this time it is for alternative proteins. My cat's driving me nuts. Okay. If at any time you have a question, put it in the chat box or the Q&A. Since I only have one monitor and I'm speaking and monitoring at the same time, it may take me a while to see it, but if it's about what I'm talking about and I see it, I will stop and give the clarification. Otherwise, the questions will wait for the end. So we're looking at alternative protein sources for poultry diets, and we will discuss some of the reasons you might look for it, whether you're going organic, you're growing a different crop, you just want to be different. You don't want to include corn or soy for a particular reason, then this is for you. So just as a review from the webinar we did last month, the nutrient classifications are carbohydrates, lipids are fats, proteins, minerals, both macro and micro. Micro sometimes referred to as trace minerals, vitamins, both the water and fat soluble ones, and of course water, the often forgotten nutrient. And last month we did carbohydrates. This time we are doing proteins. So as it fits into a diet for humans, it does the same for chickens. So the grains, which we discussed last month, provide the energy source. Corn, wheat, barley, the most common. depending on what country you're in. And then there are alternatives. The fruits and vegetables provide vitamins and minerals, and those are typically provided in a premix already made up. Dairy providing the calcium and phosphorus for humans. Chickens also need calcium and phosphorus depending on the level, if they're laying or growing. So those are the limestone dicalcium phosphate, the most common uses for macro minerals. And of course, we're talking about protein today, and that provides amino acids. And there are a variety different ones we can use depending on which country you're in. Soybean meal or roasted whole soybeans are most common in the US, field peas and canola meal in Canada, and some other ones in Europe. So if you look at a feed label, when you buy it, it just tells you crude protein. That in itself does not tell you the quality of the protein. So yeah, it's 18%, but you know, what's the quality of the protein? And the protein is to provide amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. So they consume a protein source like soybeans. They break it all down in the digestive tract to the individual amino acids. Then the individual amino acids get absorbed into the blood and are used by various cells of the body to produce the protein that they want. So maybe it's an egg protein or a meat protein. They have to have you know, all these essential and non-essential amino acids to do that. If you have everything, you know, exactly as you need it, then, you know, it's perfect. But some proteins are higher in some amino acids and lower in others, including essential amino acids. So you have to balance the diet to make sure that the bird has the minimum requirement for all the amino acids, all the essential amino acids. So the two most important ones for chickens are lysine and methionine. Methionine is typically the first limiting amino acid in a corn or soybean-based diet. So we do often add it as a synthetic methionine. Lysine is usually the second limiting amino acids. It's not as commonly added to poultry diets as the methionine. Lysine is more for swine. So this just gives you the concept of why we use crystalline amino acids. If we didn't add the synthetic methionine to a corn soy diet, the level of methionine would limit the performance of the animal because they are deficit in that amino acid. So by adding synthetic methionine, you take that total level up so that methionine is not the limiting amino acid anymore. Of course, you're over doing all of the other amino acids, whether you add the synthetic or not. But methionine is the one that was limiting the animal to make all the proteins that they needed. So they added synthetic methionine. If they didn't, they would have to increase all the amino acids, and that would increase the nitrogen content of the feed and the poop. So to be environmentally conscious, adding the synthetic methionine allows you to formulate diets when you're using corn soy to meet that limiting amino acid at the level it needs. And you can see here this feed that I made up has DL-methionine. There's many different types of methionine, and I like it how they say, you know, they make it a very generic label on ingredients, grain products, and grain byproducts. It doesn't say which grains or which grain products. So if they switch, they don't have to change it. And it usually just says plant protein products. So as I said, the most commonly used source of protein in a poultry diet in the US are soybeans, and they contain an anti-nutritional factor referred to as trypsin inhibitor. Trypsin is important for the digestion of protein, and so when you have the trypsin inhibitor, the availability of the amino acids in the protein is low, that you can't get what you need. But the trypsin inhibitor is destroyed during the production of soybean meal. So that's why we can use soybeans, but we can't use raw soybeans. They have to be heated in one way or another. And this just gives you an idea of the content and the differences between a full fat roasted soybeans. Expeller extracted means that they mechanically pushed out the oil. Typically, you have more fat in the soybean meal expeller extracted than you do if you solvent extract it. And that's because the expeller method is not as efficient in removing the oil as the solvent extraction. So you tend to have, on the solvent ones, 44% crude protein. And if they dehull the soybeans first and then solvent to extract, then the crude protein goes up to about 48%. So if you're buying soybean meal, you'll see either 44 or 48% on the label. So you know what you're getting. So why would somebody want to go soy-free? One of the reasons is GMO. If you're doing organic or you just don't like GMOs, you can't have GMO in the feed. Corn is grown everywhere, but sometimes it's hard to get hold of GMO-free corn. Kentucky, where I am, does have a lot of GMO-free corn because we use it in the distillery industry. The other issue is phytoestrogens. So these are hormone-like substances that mimic the action of the female hormone estrogen. And some people think that that is a reason to not eat soy. But soy, the phytoestrogens are also in coffee, tea, nuts, flax, sesame, sunflower, beans, garlic, onion, red wine, cabbage, broccoli, berries, apples, peaches, watermelon, alfalfa, clover sprouts, etc. So to just, point out soy seems a little, I don't know, specific. There's other things too. And the other thing is that phytoestrogen is a hormone. It's a protein, and the protein gets broken down in the digestive tract, and the amino acids are absorbed, not the protein. So you're not getting that hormone-like activity going on in the humans or the birds. The next one that is most commonly used in some commercial feeds is fish meal. Fish meal is made from fish that are ground, cooked, and processed. The fish meal can be produced from fish caught for human consumption and then the byproduct of processing, like salmon and tuna. But it can also be made specific, from fish that are specifically captured for fish meal. That's usually a menhaden fish. Fish meals can also be made from herring, anchovies, ocean perch, which is a red fish, and some white fishes like cod, haddock, hake, flounder, and pollock, of course, which are also caught for human consumption besides the salmon and tuna. So when it's a byproduct, that's, you know, a little bit less effective on the environment. We have to be very careful that we are not overfishing Manhattan and when other fish get caught at the same time. So fish meal is an excellent source of protein. It has high levels of essential amino acids, especially methionine and lysine, which are, as I said, the most limiting ones. It also has a good balance of unsaturated fatty acids, which are, you know, supposed to be good for your health, as well as certain minerals, available or non-phytate phosphorus, as we talked about last week. Phytate in plants tends to bind up phosphorus as well as other minerals, making them unavailable. But the minerals like phosphorus are more available when it comes to animal proteins. So the fish meal doesn't have that phytate problem. And it also has some vitamins, A, D, and that should be vitamin B complex. They're usually restricted to 5 to 10% of the poultry diets. The lower you can get, the better, because they can produce a fishy flavor in the eggs or meat that are being produced. Oh, I got a Q&A. Let's see what this is. What solvents? I'm not sure what solvents, sorry. All I know is it's solvent extracted. I'm not sure if it's ethanol or what that they do. But I will try and find out, because that's a good question. So this is just some of the different fish meals. So as you can see, the nutrient profile depends on what type of fish you're using. The official fish meal from the USDA, or the guys that approve or disapprove of ingredients for poultry diets, is what's listed there. The others are different ones. So typically when you're buying fish meal, you're buying the Menhaden, but you can see that even Menhaden is a little different than the official content in fish meal. Another question, let's see. Used to be able to get a great fish meal feed, but I had to watch how much I fed since the fat was over 10%. Is it mostly states that are close to ocean that have fish meal in the feeds? No, fish meal can come from anywhere. And so the it doesn't matter. In states on the water, of course, might get it cheaper than other states, but all the states will at one time or another probably use fish meal. Okay, whoops, it's down. Okay, so some of the issues with fish meal, they are unstable and cannot be stored for long, will spontaneously combust if not stored properly. There's claims that fish meal coming from South America being shipped, the ships have, burnt down because of the fish meal they're containing. I don't know if any of those stories are true. It's probably one of those old wives' tales. But if not stored properly, which would be at a low temperature, the proteins can also break down, resulting in increasing levels of biogenic amines, such as histamine, and that causes gizzard erosion in chickens. So if you're having problems with the quality of the gizzard in your animals, that may be because if you have fish meal, that could be the problem, that it's old fish meal, and some of the things have broken down. Fish meal has also been labeled as one of the sources of salmonella in feed mills. I know that they have put in a lot more controls to try and control salmonella in fish meal. Not sure how it gets in there. It may be from the fecal material of them. I don't know. I haven't studied fish meal production that much. So another common protein source is meat and bone meal. Bone meal on itself can also be fed as a calcium source, and meat meal without the bone can also be fed. All of them are a byproduct of animal slaughter. Typically, they do not use ruminants. We use mostly pork because of the whole mad cow fears, related to cows. So they don't use the animal slaughter from cows, even though if they avoid the brain material, it's not a possibility, but just to be safe, they don't use cows or other ruminants for meat and bone meal, at least not for poultry. It can be used as a feed ingredient, which is what we're going to talk about. Can also be used as a fertilizer. And there is some research from Clemson University using it to make petroleum-free plastics, which are used in skis and snowboards. So there may be other uses for it down the line, which would reduce our need for petroleum-based products. Or if not used for any of those things, it is discarded in landfills, which is an environmental issue. So made from slaughter byproducts that are cooked, referred to as rendering. It does not include blood, hair, hoofs, manure, stomach contents, or hide trimmings, but the byproducts from cutting up the animal. There are different types. The higher quality guarantee a minimum of 50% protein, and some of the lower quality ones guarantee a minimum of 45%. So if you're buying meat and bone meal, make sure you know that you're getting the higher quality that you hope you're paying for. Meat and bone meal, excellent source of protein. They typically limit it to less than 5% of poultry diets because of the high calcium, phosphorus, and lysine contents. But if you take out the bone and just have meat meal, you don't have that restriction and you can use more of it. So this chart here, which is online, can give you an example of the composition of the meat and bone meal at the higher and lower levels of quality, as well as the meat meal. Meat meal still has quite a high level of calcium, but not as high as when the bone meal is included. And of course, it depends on how much bone meal is included when they make it. As I said, it's all cooked, so you're not getting, it's done by rendering, so it looks like totally different than the product that went into the rendering facility. Okay, some of the other protein sources that are more commonly used as an alternative to soybeans, and they're not in order, they're in alphabetical order more than anything else. Camelina is a false flax, canola, which is a type of rapeseed, cottonseed, peanuts, sometimes referred to as groundnuts, safflower seed, sesame seed, and sunflower seeds. So there are two different kinds. There are the solvent extracted, and I got to figure out what that solvent is. I probably learned it at one time, but have forgotten. They don't need to say solvent extracted on it, but you can usually tell by the fat level in it. So if you're buying an oilseed meal, I would always ask, especially if you're growing organic, because only mechanically extracted oil meal can be used in organic feeds. And again, by a mechanical extraction process, often called high pressure extraction. Some developing countries have developed these very simplistic mechanical extractors that can be used in small communities to get their own oil, which they have a hard time getting, and also getting the meal for the chickens. I'm not sure how far that went, but it is something that many of the non-governmental organizations have been introducing over the years. Camelina meal, which I said was a false flax. It's a new product that's getting around. It's mostly used for biodiesel production. It's not an oil for cooking. It contains secondary plant metabolites called glucosinolates that can adversely affect broiler performance. You can help it to some degree by adding copper sulfate, but you still have to use less than 10% of the diet. So it is not a replacement for all of the soybean meal. Canola meal, as I said, is a variety of rapeseed. Rapeseed had a bad rap for having uric acid and glucosinolates, but Canada developed a cultivar of rapeseed that was 00. It doesn't have the uric acid and it doesn't have glucosinolates. So they changed the name to canola meal to distinguish it from, the bad rap for rapeseed. In Europe, they often call it 00 rapeseed, but in Canada and most of North America, it's referred to as canola. Canola has fibrous hulls that can result in poorer digestibility of the protein and energy in the meal. So whether or not you remove the hulls is important. And they may contain non-starch polysaccharides. As we said, it can cause the digesta to become very viscous and end up with pasty butts. And the glucosinolates, but the new varieties are extremely low in glucosinolates, if it's there at all. So the nutrient profile varies from country to country because of differences in oil extraction technique. But typically they have a slightly lower crude protein than soybean meal. Soybean meal is at 44, 48%, depending on how it's done. And canola meal usually has 36 to 39% crude protein. It has a good amino acid profile. It's limiting in lysine, but has high levels of methionine and cysteine, which are the sulfur-containing amino acids. As we said, with the corn-soy diet, methionine is often the limiting amino acid. So maybe we need, because soybeans is low in methionine, maybe we need to reduce a little bit of the soybean meal and put in some canola meal and have them work together to get a better balance of amino acids. So if you can combine the right ingredients, maybe you don't need to use the synthetic amino acids, methionine, which organics are trying to eliminate. They're currently looking for an organic source of methionine, but I think rather than having a corn-soy diet, they need to look at mixing ingredients with different amino acid profiles to try and meet the requirement for sulfur amino acids without using synthetic methionine. The maximum inclusion in poultry diets, chick starter 20%, broiler grower 30%, turkey grower 20%, egg laying diets 20%, breeder diets, and duck and goose diets at 15%. They used to restrict in layer diets because of the residual glucosinolates, which caused liver hemorrhage mortality. But with the current canola meals available, there's no glucosinolates, so you can add up to 20% for layers. The publication that I have put here, and I will get out of this and copy this and go to the Zoom. Oops, I need to stop sharing or I can't do it. Where's my chat? Stick it in the chat since you can't get it from my screen. Share screen again. Back to alternative proteins and look at it. Oops, no, I can't see anything. This publication from Canada, the Canadian Council, based in Canada, tells you all about canola, how to feed it, and things like that. So rather than going into too much detail of one specific alternative oilseed meal, I recommend that you read that publication to find more information if that is what you are wanting to use. Cottonseed meal, often used for non-poultry type diets, has less protein, dietary energy, and available lysine content than soybeans. Unlike soybean meal, where methionine is the limiting amino acid, lysine is the limiting amino acids. Some of the old varieties of cottonseed meal contained gossypol and cyclopropanoid fatty acids, which limited its use. And so, especially for the latter ones in the brown laying hens, which can't break it down, and so you get yolk problems. The quality of the yolk is adversely affected, so you couldn't feed it to brown egg layers. But the new cotton seeds are glandless, which is where those things are contained, and they've been developed and are available on the market. So the big no-no for feeding poultry cottonseed meal has been limited somewhat, but it needs more research on how to use it. Peanut meal is another one. In the rest of the world, it's called groundnut meal, but we call it peanut meal. The availability in the US is low, though you might get more of it down in the Southeast, where they grow a lot of peanuts, but that's usually for human consumption. So because the availability is low, there's not a lot of research done with it. And because peanuts can become moldy and contaminated with mycotoxins that are carried into the meal, a lot of people don't want to use it. They're unsure if the allergens from peanuts that, for humans that have peanut allergies are carried into the eggs and meat of poultry that have consumed peanut meal. That would be another restriction. And they're low in the essential amino acids of threonine, lysine, and methionine. So instead of methionine being the limiting amino acid, it's threonine, which they don't typically use the synthetic ones for poultry diets. Safflower seed meal is mostly grown in California, primarily for the bird feed industry. The crop likes semi-arid or rain-fed conditions. Safflower was originally grown for its flowers, which are used to create red and yellow dyes for clothing and for coloring of foods. But it can be used in poultry diets if you extract the oil, and you can see safflower oil sometimes around. The quality is variable depending on the extraction method, whether it's cold pressing, expeller pressing, which is more of a mechanical thing than that simple one I talked about where they do it mechanically, or solvent extracted. Dehulling the safflower seed before you try to remove the hull does improve crushing efficiency so that you get more oil out, but it's more expensive. Dehulled meal is what you would want because it's greater than 40% and it only has 10% fiber. The completely hulled, meaning it still has the hull on, is going to be limited by that 30 to 40% fiber level, and it only has 20 to 25% protein. So unlikely to find a good quality safflower seed meal in the US, but you never know. So they have shown that dehulled, full fat, means they haven't extracted the oil yet, can be used up to 8% of the diet in broiler chicks and up to 10% in older broilers and laying hens. They have shown that dehulled extracted safflower meal, so the oil's been out, can replace 60% of the soybeans. That's not 60% of the diet. Soybean makes up a large portion of the diet, and replacing 60% of that soybean meal can be done as long as lysine and methionine requirements are met, either from the other ingredients or from adding synthetic methionine or lysine. Sesame seed is another possible alternative here in the US. It's primarily grown for human consumption. When I was doing my PhD research at the University of Nairobi in Kenya, I did some work with sesame seed meal. It was very variable for the nutrient content because of the processing methods there. And a lot of farmers, the sesame seed guys gave them sesame seed and tried to show them how to grow it. But once it was all grown and harvested, they ended up selling it to Saudi Arabia because supposedly it's an aphrodisiac. I don't know. Sesame seed meal, which is left after you remove the oil, is low in lysine, isolysine, leucine, valine, all of which are essential amino acids. But it's good in the sulfur-containing amino acids of methionine and cysteine, which are the limiting ones in corn soy diet. The hulls are where you get that methionine, cysteine, and also some calcium from. So if you dehull it, you're going to lose some of that. So you can replace a portion of the corn as well as the soybean meal in poultry diets with sesame seed meal. You cannot completely replace soybean meal with sesame seed meal. Sunflower seeds, you get some of that here. I've seen sunflower seed oil in the stores. The quality will depend on processing times, extraction temperatures, and the percentage of hulls remaining. They can, all of that affect the lysine available in the final meal. I also looked at sunflower seeds while I was overseas, and the problem is that they dehull it and then put back a percentage of the hulls into it, because having a small percentage of hulls helps with oil extraction to get more oil out of it. And so it depends what the processing facility is doing. And so I saw a lot of variability in the, of course, fat content, as well as the protein content and the fiber content, because the hulls, of course, are going to be the main source of fiber in the diet. So here we just show the differences between sunflower meal using an expeller, which is a mechanical one, solvent is a little higher, and then if you partially dehull it, you get a major reduction in the EE, which is the fat content. So you're going from 7.6% with a mechanical extraction, 2.3 with solvent, and just 0.5 once you've removed part of the hulls. Some legumes can be used to replace soybeans, and these are in alphabetical order. Chickpeas, sometimes called garbanzo beans. Cowpeas, sometimes referred to as black-eyed peas. Faba beans, peas or feed peas, and although those are the same cultivar, same species, of peas. They are different cultivars, which are raised differently for different reasons. And if you're trying to look for research on peas versus, feed peas, then you have the problem that some people refer to chickpeas as field peas, which is chickpeas is a totally different species, and some people refer to as faba beans as field peas, so it can be totally confusing. So make sure that you check the species name in any research that you're looking at to make sure that you have the right one that you want. So the definition of a legume is that they have seed pods that, when ripe, split along both sides, and they're noted for their ability to use nitrogen from the air. This is done by a symbiotic relationship between the plants and the bacteria, referred to as rhizobia, and they are found in the roots. And so legumes are often planted in crop rotations to improve the nitrogen source in the soil. But there are different types of legumes. Grain legumes, which is what we're going to be talking about, are those legumes cultivated for immature or mature grain. They have typically twice as much protein as the cereal grains, 27% in peas, for example, and almost 50% in soybeans. But a lot of the legumes, depending on which one you talk about, contain different anti-nutritional factors, such as protease inhibitors, and protease is the enzyme that digests protein. So if it's inhibited, you're going to have problems with your protein digestion. Lectins, phytate I talked about, we're binding the minerals. Antivitamins, L-carnitine, which is a type of amino acid that causes problems. Tannins, depends on the particular crop. And there are forage legumes where they are consumed as forage, not as grain. So that's more for ruminants. So when you're talking about for poultry, we're talking grain legumes. First one, going alphabetically, is chickpeas, as I said, sometimes referred to as garbanzo beans. They're one of the world's most important grain legumes, mostly in Asia. India is the biggest producer, mostly for human consumption. And so that's where most of it comes from. The chemical composition of chickpeas is similar to field peas, which we'll get into in a minute, except that the chickpeas are higher in fat. Depending on the variety, again, protein content can range from 12 to 30%, with methionine and cysteine, which are the sulfur-containing amino acids, being the first limiting amino acids for use in poultry diets. As far as anti-nutritional factors, they include the protease inhibitors, protease being for protein digestion, amylase inhibitors, amylase being for starch digestion, lectins, tannins, and oligosaccharides. But most of these anti-nutritional factors are deactivated by heat. And the effectiveness of the heat treatment depends on the temperature and time. So extrusion is the most effective method, which is not really a roasting or extracting of oil. It's a whole different method, and not a lot of feed mills have them. So it may be hard to get good chickpea meal, depending on the heat. Raw chickpeas, you can only include 10 to 15%, although turkeys and laying hens can handle up 20%. And then if you've extruded it, you can get it higher. Cowpeas, often referred to as black-eyed peas, are an important legume in the tropical and subtropical regions, since they are heat and drought tolerant crops. And when I was in Nairobi in Kenya, we ate a lot of chickpeas. They have an amino acid profile similar to soybeans, that meaning that they are low in the sulfur-containing amino acids of methionine and lysine. Methionine and cysteine, and they are high in lysine, which is typical for soybeans. As we said, they contain the protease inhibitors, non-starch polysaccharides, which we talked about last month with the carbohydrates, which are polysaccharides, but the non-starch polysaccharides can, plug up the gut because of their viscous nature. Pectins and phenolic compounds can also be a problem. They're not contain visine and convisine, which are implicated in a human condition called favism, which is a hemolytic anemia. So you break down they don't have they're deficient in the enzyme needed to break down those two compounds, and so you get the problem. And so those with red blood cell, that's not right. Skip it. Peas. This is where we get into all the confusion I mentioned. Garden peas, which are that scientific name, are grown for human consumption, prized for their sweetness, smooth texture, and they are consumed fresh. Can be dry, available animal feed. What most people are referring to when you are buying peas for use specifically for animal feeds. They are grown specifically for that that use. Grow feed animals. It's the exact same species, but it's a different cultivar. Levels of the anti-nutrient feed, even though they're the same species, they're different cultivars. You don't have to field peas. So this particular reference tells you all about it. Oops. Let's copy you. Come on. Come on, let me copy you. Control all will work. Nope, that didn't work. Come on, there we go. Go to my Zoom. Oh, I can't till I stop sharing. Zoom. Where's my chat? I lost my chat. I got a question. Are field peas edible by humans? Yes, they're the exact same species, but they won't be the nice sweet one There we go. So this is from that ruminants, but oh, okay, that. Okay, that one, uh, uh, they have feed digestion inhibitors, which can cause problems. Lupins is starting to get more interest in lupins. After I wrote an article about it many years ago, I was looking at some more up-to-date information for this presentation and found that there are many different types of lupins, and certain lupins are very good for animal feeds. Australia is the dominant world producer of lupins at 85% of the world production. It's also produced in United Kingdom and Western Canada. Don't know if Western US does it, it didn't say. And the high price of organic feed has increased interest in lupins, since they do not require roasting prior to feeding. And so that's why there's this sudden increase in lupin research. A lot of the recent research, I looked at some from 2025, they gave a good description of why people are now interested in it. And as I said, there's different species. There's over 300 species in both European and Western hemispheres. The most commonly ones cultivated are the white lupin and the narrow leaf lupin. And in Australia, which is the biggest producer of lupins, they typically grow the narrow leaf lupin for, that's their choice of species for lupin production. So if you look at the narrow leaf lupins, the protein and oil content vary and are related to seed size. Bigger seeds, even within the same cultivar, tend to have higher protein and oil contents. The starch content is lower than for field peas and faba beans. Some cultivars are completely devoid of carbohydrates, but that's only a few of them. The highly soluble oligosaccharide content restricts wider use in poultry diets because of the gumminess and the pasty butts. The amino acid profile is similar to other legumes, which is high in lysine, low in sulfur-containing amino acids, and tryptophan. So the amino acid availability in the narrow leaf lupins is similar to that of soybeans, and the chart gives you an idea of the range of content in different cultivars. So they're going to vary depending on cultivar and how big the seeds are and all that kind of stuff. Some other legumes for poultry that I have been asked about in the past: common vetch is drought resistant and adapts well to semi-arid regions and grows in poor soils, but it contains cyanoalanine toxins. So you can't really use it in poultry diets, probably can't consume it either. Cyanoalanine is an amino acid. You can see the official name there. It's a rare type of amino acid that contains nitro. And it is a neurotoxin that causes hyperexcitability, convulsions, and rigidity in chicks. A different species of vetch that I was asked about is the bitter vetch, which originates in the Mediterranean, but now is grown worldwide. It has high yields and is resistant to droughts and insects. A good source of energy, and its amino acid profile is similar to that of soybeans. It has been used in animal diets, but the canavaline, which is an antagonist to arginine, which is an essential amino acid, has limited its use. I haven't heard of anybody ever using any of the vetches. Alternative protein sources are potato proteins. They're a byproduct of potato starch production, which is more common in Europe. Cornstarch is more common here in the US. It can increase the incidence of subclinical necrotic enteritis when fed to broiler chicks. The speculation has been that it's due to a high trypsin inhibitor activity. I don't think that's ever been proven. Other research has shown that feeding low levels of potato protein, that the potato protein has an antimicrobial effect in the intestines, so it can be a replacement for antibiotics. It also reduces the level of coliforms, which include E. coli-like bacteria that serve as indicators for fecal contamination. I did some research with potato protein when I was at the University of Minnesota. I didn't have any of the problems that they are indicating. And you can buy organic potato protein now. It's a recent addition to feeds available. Alternative protein sources. This typically was more for small and backyard flocks, but there are some that are getting more into large-scale production, black soldier fly larvae being one, mealworms being another, that are being done in, for large scale for sale and use in poultry feeds. There is a really good review article, The Role of Insects in Poultry Feed, Present and Future Perspectives. I have a copy of it electronically, but I got it through the University of Kentucky, so you can't get it online. But if you email me for a copy, there's my email, jackie.jacob@uky.edu, and put reference request in the subject line so it doesn't get missed. That would be good. It discusses all of those different insects listed on the left. And this one here, from that, I guess not all of them, must be missing one. This table from that publication does give you a comparison of the different whole insects reared on a commercial scale, comparing the mealworms, the black soldier flies, and the house cricket. I guess it's the common fly, it's not there. And the amino acid profiles, which if you're trying to use it to balance your amino acid profile, that is possible too. Now, I just wanted to make a comment on the black soldier fly larva. We have been promoting it for use in developing countries that need a protein source. It lives on waste products, so you're controlling your waste products in the area, as well as having a feedstuff to give to your poultry. Pupa are they self-harvest, so it makes it good for small and backyard flocks. The pupa migrate and can be collected, and so a lot of small flocks, both here and in developing countries, have done that. Makes it a small part of the diet because it's full fat. The larvae are high in protein and fat content. Protein content has a good amino acid profile similar to many protein-rich feedstuffs, such as fish meal and soybean meal. But the high fat content limits the use of just dried black soldier fly or live ones that have self-harvested. It has gone into commercial production in large scale, but their product that they sell is a defatted black soldier fly larva. So they have removed that excess fat, meaning you can use more of it in the diet. Black soldier fly larva, defatted, all that kind of stuff, were only recently approved for use in animal feeds. Black soldier flies are voracious eaters of organic material. So if you have a lot of organic waste in your area rather than landfill, you can feed the black soldier flies on it. There's lots of videos on YouTube on how to do it, and they convert that organic waste material to animal feedstuffs. There are concerns about potential contamination with food pathogens that would be in the waste products. That was the roadblock for use as a legal feed ingredient, but as I said, they have approved it. And this just shows you how they commercially do it. They raise the flies on waste food products. They get the eggs and then they harvest them, they dry them, and then they extract them, and then they give that to the animal feed. Another alternative protein source that we have been trying to promote overseas and in backyard flocks is earthworms. They're a good quality protein and can be used in animal feeds if dehydrated. They're really full of water, so you need to dehydrate them to include them in a large quantity. There is large scale production of earthworms over time, and you can do that with available technology. And again, oops, where did I go? There are some publications. These are all from the University of Kentucky, but if you search any state, the extension service in your area probably has publications on vermiculture, which is, of course, the growing of worms. Basically composting waste material with worms. These ones happen to be the ones at the University of Kentucky, since that's where I'm at, so I thought I'd share. So I said I'm getting a little overtime. I will answer a few questions if anyone has them after I turn this off. The next webinars, which are always free, so Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time, they're all listed on that website, which I will put in the chat box if you need to access it. I haven't been able to get any for the summer, but I may get something for July and August. I'm still working on it. So the next one that is scheduled is September 3rd. Poultry poopology, that one was rescheduled from last year when she canceled at the last minute. I don't know where October is. What happened to October? November is specifically on raising black soldier fly larvae. This is coming out of North Carolina State University. Ann Fanatico there runs a sustainable farm, which has some poultry in it. And she does raise black soldier fly larvae for her chickens. It is a small scale, so would be appropriate for backyard flocks. And then she has a follow-up webinar the following month, December 2nd, where she'll look at choice feeding as a management tool for chickens. And so rather than adding mixed feed, adding different ingredients, and allowing the chicken to choose which ingredients it eats, will allow it to meet its own nutritional requirements. And if you have any topics that you'd like to suggest to me, email me, my email's there, and put webinar suggestions in the subject line so that it does not get lost. Oops. Get out of this, go back to my Zoom. Stop sharing. I'm gonna see if I can get, no, it won't let me. No, it won't let me unless I stop sharing. I saw a question in Q&A for small backyard flocks. Is there a benefit to feeding whole grain feed versus meals? Well, we did discuss that in last month's. There are some benefits to feeding whole grain, but it depends on the grain, how it's included, things like that. But we did discuss that some. So wheat is the one that I've seen most often used in whole grain feeding, but it is common in Europe to use whole grains, even in a complete feed. Yeah, there is an option for that. So I'm over time by 6 minutes. Oh, I got a question in the chat. Where can we find previous recordings? I think I had that on my, where are you? Oops, come on. It's on our main website under the tab specifically for webinars. The articles is just at the poultry.extension.org. And then it has upcoming ones. And if you go to the bottom of webinars, it has the past ones as well. Is there a recording? Yes, we record all of our webinars. This one has been recorded and will be available hopefully tonight, maybe tomorrow. I have to go do an extension activity all day in the one of the counties. So I'll see how my time works for doing that. I pressure cook all my legumes to remove that sort of heat. Can it create a loss on protein? Anytime you're adding heat, you can have an effect on protein. So it depends on temperature and time. You may get some loss or breakdown, so that it might affect the availability of the proteins. Or if it's too hot, you could damage the proteins so that they're not available anymore. So it depends on temperature and time. But if humans can eat it and get something from it, then so can the chickens. Any other questions? Say I ran a little over time. I put some links in there, so I wanted to just leave it. So in case anybody wants to click on it, they'll be gone once I close down the webinar. So I'll wait a couple more minutes, but I gotta go get ready for tomorrow. The links are great. Thanks. Thanks, Pam. Yeah, I gotta go load up my van for tomorrow. So I'm gonna shut it down. Everybody have a good evening, and hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar, which so far is only booked for September, but I am working on trying to get people to talk about some topics that have been suggested in the past, and I'll get back to you as soon as it'll be posted on our Facebook page. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.